I am Master Lot, and
Lot.
thank you guys for having me out at Talon Crescent.
Thank you very much.
For organizing this. The question came up online about doing some sort of buckler work, and essentially this is good for unarmored stuff. This is good for cut and thrust, all those things. What we're not going to be covering anything specifically textual in this class. I'm not going to sit here and teach you a 133 class or anything else like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at some fundamental concepts of sword fighting, and we're going to look at it from the perspective of sword buckler. We're going to use some things from 133 or look at maybe Marazzo. We're not going to really be delving into the text a lot, but we're going to have some fundamental concepts that we can use when we're fighting, and to process kind of how to approach combat, because it doesn't, like, people talk, they study a lot of guards and positions, right? They do all these things that they see in the books, right? But then they get out on the field and they don't know what to do with them. And if you look at the books, you look at all those things, you look at all these guards, there's 100 different guards, right? Everybody's got their own different guards. So what's the real guard, right? Well, the answer really is it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter all that much. And what we're going to do is the guards are there to help you understand how to transition, how to move, and how to go from place to place. The biggest issue in sword fighting in general, and everything else, what we do in fencing is measure. Measure is more important than guard, right? So what do we mean by measure? Who knows what measure is? What do we measure? I know you know. I know you know. You. What's measure?
Measure is the distance between you and the pointy end.
The distance between you and the pointy end. The distance between you and the edge. The distance between you and your opponent. That is measure, right? But measure is inherent. What is inherent in measure, beyond just distance, is time, right? It's not just distance. Measure is a distance with an understanding of time, right? So when we have measure, we have essentially out of measure, and we have in measure. What's the difference between out of measure and in measure? You answer first. Who's next? You.
How can you strike them without stepping forward, or do you need to actually step in to actually hit them?
Can you strike them without stepping forwards, or do you have to step? Right? That's a really good thing to know about measure. However, out of measure, completely out of measure, means what? Means it's going to take me more than one step to get it. Completely out of measure is I can't hit at all. If I can't hit her at all, she is out of measure, right? And that's a good thing to understand. In fact, you could even break it down. Is it 2-step measure? Is it 3-step measure? Is it 4-step measure? But generally, when you're out of measure, you're safe, right? If you're out of measure, it's going to take me more than 1 footstep to go and strike, either with a cut or with a thrust. Just out of measure, right? In measure, therefore, is when I can strike. She's in danger. She's in danger from a single time attack, right? Close measure is when I can strike without having to move my foot. And these are 3 different spaces and 3 different times in which things can happen on the field. And these are the most important places to understand. And the reason is because once you cross that threshold, we're fighting and we're out of measure, right? At some point, we're going to cross that threshold. And I can have a perfect guard, right? Or whatever, my nice 133 right shoulder guard, right? I'm out of measure. What do I have to do? I have to go forwards. So I'm going to take a step into measure in my perfect guard, And while I do that, she's going to hit me. Right? So here's my perfect guard. She can just come right down. I've got an opening right in my head. She can just hit me in the head as I step forwards. Boom. Right? Because I've stepped forwards into measure in my perfect guard. And I'm out of sync. I'm out of the fight. I haven't done anything to actually control the situation. And this is the transition. This is the threshold that we're going to be worrying about today in this class, because that's the threshold that is the key to the fight. The step between out of measure and in measure, right? This is what turns the game from a chess match, or from what is essentially chicken, right? We're both standing in measure, we can both hit each other. Now it's who's faster, right? But once I step out of measure, and once I start the fight here, being able to control the fight as I come into measure, now I've taken away her opportunity to hit me, right? Now we're in measure, and I can strike her, right? So all of those things become very important there. If I just try to come out from here and strike, right? Then she's going to strike back at me, right? And these are the things we're going to use. Essentially 4 fundamental actions. Okay. 2 of them are provoking actions or finishing actions. Those are your cuts and your thrusts. Who knows what a cut is? Who knows what a thrust is? Okay. Cuts and thrusts are actions, and covers and binds are dominance. Okay? We will use covers and binds to create dominance, cuts and thrusts to create actions. We will cover our opponent, we will create time for ourselves, and we will provoke them into actions in which we can hit them. And these are the fundamental concepts of what we're going to be doing. I have an opponent. We're standing at the threshold of measure, right? Maybe I get just to the edge where I can, with a large step, I can reach out and I can strike. With a cut or a thrust, it doesn't really matter. She's lying in guard and she's waiting for me, right? She's prepared for my action. So I'm going to make that cut right there, right? All she has to do is avoid my action, right? She's going to move out of the way of my action, and she's going to strike me while I'm cutting at her, right? There's the problem with my cut. The problem with my cut is we're standing at measure, and I'm going to make that step to come at her. I'm giving her all the time and opportunity to do something against me, to avoid me, to defend me, all of those things, right? If I'm here and I take another step forwards, what's going to happen? Then she's going to hit me while I step forwards. All of those actions are time. So in order to cross that threshold, in order to cross that measure, I have to do one of the 4 things as I'm crossing the threshold. A cover is not a block. It could be considered a block, it could be turned into a block. But what a cover is I'm going to take my sword, I'm going to put it in the way of her attack. So pick a guard, any guard, doesn't really matter. To take a cutting guard, right? She has picked a cutting guard. She's got a high right shoulder, right? It could be right shoulder, it could be Marazzo's Alta, it could be Myers' high guard on the right. Doesn't really matter, right? In order to cross this threshold, I'm going to take a small step. It doesn't matter if it's a passing step. It doesn't matter if it's an advancing step. I have to calculate what step can I take that when she moves against me, I will be prepared to react against her. now that you guys have gotten really smart, right? And what we got is all right. He's coming in. He's making. I'm in guard. He's in guard. He makes steps in, and he makes that cover. This is a bad idea. I can start that cut and go, ooh, that's a bad idea. So where do I want to go? Right? He's covered all this side. Now, if he doesn't do this, if he puts this on top of his sword, right? Like right? So he's done that, right? Where can I go? Oh, I get right up underneath here, right? So this is why, right? He wants to put that buckler there, right? Because now if I can't hit down on his sword, I can't hit up on his sword, right? That's a really good cover. It's covering that whole side. Well, what about his leg, right? He's gonna say, what about his leg? What about his leg? Well, here's right? If he does this right, that's exactly what should happen. See how Frederick's leaning forward? He's got his sword buckler out from his body. Collapse your arms and step forward with a big step, like a step with your foot, right? So here he's made a cover here. He's got his buckler there, but now I can take his leg, right? And that's going to be much more problematic for him. So if he makes a good position, a position with a small step, a lean forward of the body, he's got that whole thing covered, and he's got his leg covered, right? All of that is well protected. So I have to do something else. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go around the other side. It's not that long for me to go, oh, I can easily take a cut to the other side of the body, right? It doesn't take me that long. It seems like a reasonable thing to do. Right? If he's made this in the right step, go back. What you're going to do is just, at this point, just dominate the sword by cutting down on it. Okay? So, if he's in the right time, he's made his action, he comes forward with the cover, he's made a small step with his feet, he's watching what I'm doing. He can turn his hands, he can come down on my sword, and he can defend my new line, and he's seeing me do, and predicted that I'm going to do, because that's what I have to do. Right? There's no other options for me than to start to throw to this side. So I'm down on my sword defense. And that's what we're all going to get to do on this side. Okay? So everybody's going to be doing the same jobs. You're going to make the cover. I'm going to watch you take that step. And I'm going to throw my attack over here. And that's what you guys are doing. Now, notice I need to be at a distance. And I'm going to need to take a step. I can't reach it without making a footstep. Close, this becomes bad for me. That's why measure is really important. Alright, let's try that. Get going. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. All you guys are going to put on masks, okay? What this is going to allow us to do is essentially finish off the sequence, okay? We're going to come in from out of measure. I'm going to make a cover as I come in to force my partner, in this case, to hit me with a wider action to make a longer time. Then I'm going to disrupt that action. And I'm going, after I've disrupted it, that is my tempo to attack him. Okay? Right? Theoretically, if I'm really fast, I could just hit him in the same tempo. Right? But we don't have to. If we're in control of time and measure, we can be very patient with this action. We can be very patient with our opponent. So I have an opponent, partner in this case. I'm going to make all the same actions. My first action is my cover. He then comes around and tries to hit me. I'm going to disrupt that action. From here, I'm going to close forwards with my buckler and my sword, and I'm going to strike him. Right? While I dominate his sword. Right? I can do it with a cut. I can do it with a thrust. I come with my cover. Here, there's my thrust. Right? You notice I don't give him any time to recover. Once I've dominated his sword out of the way, I take advantage of all that. So here I am out of distance. I come in, he goes around, boom. Nice, smooth action. It's either a thrust, a cut, it doesn't really matter. I know where his sword's going to be because I've put it there. This is the risk of getting greedy. The risk of getting greedy is you don't know where his sword is. So I cover, he comes around and I try to cut at it. Here, look how greedy I've got. Right? I didn't know exactly where his sword was, and maybe I blocked that, and maybe I don't. Okay? So I'm going to stay safe. I'm not going to get greedy. I'm going to make my cover. I'm going to find his sword. Once I've got it, now I can completely dominate the situation, and I can put my sword wherever I want it to go. Okay? Thrust, cut, cut, cut. He's trying to get out. He's going to try to get away from me. You don't like that? Okay. I just go chase him down because now I'm in control of the situation. All right? So masks, lines, we do the same thing. Good. Yeah, make nice controlled steps through these actions. Everybody look quick. Make nice controlled steps through these actions. You really want it to look like step, step, step. Right? You see, I'm not blending my actions together. I want to be in control of each action separately in time. Okay? Go ahead. Good. Right? Each action in time. Good.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
Good.
Stepping way too far.
You know what I do to them? If they stand here, I'm going to stab you in the face with this pen. The hell, because it does.
Actually, I haven't stabbed you before. I'm going to get rid of it.
I do a lot.
Cover is also in some ways an invitation to the other side. All right, two more.
You need a break. I need a drive. I feel I'm not even conscious anymore. Okay, fine,
Good. So we focused a lot of this class on the cover, the use of that cover, that coming into measure, and creating a defensive position as you do it. You can do this same concept. You can make this same cover with a threat. Right? We talked at the beginning, we talked about 4 different actions. We talked about covers, binds, cuts, and thrusts. Right? And you can, so if I've got an opponent and I'm going to cover this measure, right? I can do that. I can make that cover. You see this in 133, right? I've done exactly that same cover, right? I can also make that cover a little bit more threatening, right? I can make that cover a little bit more threatening. The one thing I have to be very careful of is getting too close and trying to make it an attack, right? Because as soon as I make that, I turn this into an attack, I've got an opponent who's waiting for me. He's standing still, and he's waiting cautiously for me. He's going to avoid my attack, and he's going to try to do something else, or he's going to block my attack, whatever it is. This is still a very long attack, and he's now made a block against it in that time. And because I've committed to my action, I'm in trouble. Okay? So all of those things kind of come into play. But when I understand how to use these things, the thing we talked about, cuts and thrusts, also being very helpful for are provocations, right? I know what he's going to do when I come with my attack. He's going to make a cover of his own, right? And so I want to provoke him to make a cover of his own. I want to make it look like I'm doing one thing, and then I'm going to do another thing. But I have to start one thing first, and in control, I'm then going to change that thing, right? So as I start doing my thing, and he starts responding to my thing, now I do another thing. Okay? And what I want to point out with this is really helpful for when you've made that cover, when you've gained measure, right? And they're waiting for you. Because let's say I make that cover, that last bit that we did. He's standing in guard. I make that cover, and he waits for me, right? Because I've come in, I made the cover, I've gotten closer, I've gotten to the place where I can hit him, but he's waiting. He knows that I have to reach forwards to hit him, right? He stands there, and I'm going to go, oh, hey, look. But guess what he's not going to do? He's not going to let me do that. So now as I do that, he's going to respond with a cover or a counter of his own, right? And now I'm in trouble. So, what do I need to do? I need to do something else. I need to watch my opponent. I need to provoke him into his next action. Provoke him into his next action, and then finish with a new action. Did you see it? Right? It could be a cut, it could be a thrust. It doesn't really matter. Right? I've made a cover. He hasn't done anything yet. Right? I've made my cover, and maybe I go, oh, hey, look, cut. Right? He's still going to make a cover against the cut. 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 Right? Provoked him with one action. Changed that action. But what did I never do? I never left my cover. Right? So what you see with a lot of fighters though, is you'll see this, and you'll get caught in this all the time. I'm out here and I go, provoke, it's just a provoke, right? How many people have seen those fighters? Right? They're just provoking. That's fine. It's okay. They're provoking. But if you cover their provocation, right, then you can create opportunity. If you stay defended, you can create better provocations, right? So I can provoke with a cut and a cover at the same time, right? I provoke with a cut and a cover, that forces him to do something bigger to respond to, right? Now I finish with my cover. Okay? So covers. And we looked at one cover. 4 different quadrants. We started with the high guard. Pick a different guard. He's now in a low guard, right? His sword is still retreated, so I don't want to bind it. I want to cover it. How do I cover that? How do I cover that sword? Do I do the same thing? Probably not. Maybe I cover with my sword low and my buckler high. Right? Change? Right? There's the sword over there. Where's my cover? Here. Right? Because now I'm going to cover my right side against him. He's low on his left. Right? Now I cover low on my left. Covering with my sword. Right? If he tries to attack me, if I do this, am I covering? Right? So if you like half shield, if you like those things, right? You've got to know where you're putting it. Low, high. I'm still half shield. Cover, making that cover. Right? I've got to respond to what he's doing. Wherever he goes, whatever he does, he's choosing something. I don't even care what it is. Maybe even a middle guard. Right? A middle guard, I can still cover the middle guard. Middle guards binding is really good. Right? Now I've bound him. Right? What am I going to do? I'm going to start my attack. That's going to force him to do what? Defend. And I finish with my next action. Following him all the way through. Okay. Covers, binds, provocation. This is how we get from out of measure to in measure, safely and in control of the whole fight. When you can do that, you won't have to rush, you won't have to cut hard, right? You won't have to worry about where your opponent is going to hit you. You will know where they're going to hit you. You can take your time, you can be precise, and you can control the fight.
And then we're talking
From
about
out of measure
how badly did you get
through to in measure. I assess my opponent, I cover, and keep going. Right? Whatever he does, wherever he goes, I cover, I bind, right? I strike if he wants to try to respond to that, if he's going to change. Right? It doesn't really matter where he goes. I'm prepared to move against him, making small actions, small footsteps, in control the whole way through those actions. Any questions? You want to, good stuff, bad stuff? Good stuff? You guys you see how this starts to play together? Excellent. Okay. Is there, I want to make sure I cover questions. I don't want to, you guys can leave with stuff mulling. You know, you can always contact me too. You guys got it? Good. All right. Well, good work. Great work. And get some rest because we're going to have a tournament soon. And thank you guys for coming out. It's great.
Thank you.